I worked just shy of 40 years, but my pension still wasn't going to be enough for us. So when he called out of the blue, offering a free pension review, I was all ears. He spoke professionally about investments. He seemed a really decent guy. Just shy of 40 years, pension. He took all of it.
Welcome back to Alas, Vine and Hitchens. I'm Sarah Vine.
She is still Sarah Vine.
Well, there's somewhat less of me this morning.
Oh. Surely in many ways more.
So I would like to reveal something about myself. I have all my life suffered from hair loss since I was 16. It started falling out when I was a teenager, and it has just fallen out all my life. I have written about it before. But for the last 15 years, I've been wearing a hairpiece because it got so bad. And a few weeks ago, I went to see a very eminent dermatologist to see whether there was anything that could be done, because I'm going to be 60 in 2 years' time. And I had this crazed notion that I'd like to actually have my own hair by the age of 60.
Not crazed at all.
So I went to see a lady called Dr. Ophelia Varash, and she looked at my hair and she said, no, probably not restore it completely, but I think I can do something. There's a variety of treatments now available that weren't available when I was 16 and when it first started falling out. And I tried all the sort of standard stuff, all the minoxidils and vitamins and rubbing lotions and potions and rosemary oil, and none of that works. I basically have androgenic alopecia, which is basically male pattern hair loss, which is what most men have. Although now we call it female pattern hair loss because that's
we deserve it.
No, you don't deserve it. But the thing is, it's sort of, I mean, not to denigrate men's hair loss, but it is a sort of accepted thing, isn't it, for men?
I think a lot of men do get very upset by it.
Yes, of course they do, because it is very upsetting.
But it is, no one looks and says, well, that's unusual.
No, and it's generally considered, or at least it's been framed often as a sign of masculinity. It makes you are more masculine if you lose your hair. The opposite is true if you are a woman and you lose your hair. Hair in women is so bound up in femininity and attractiveness and fertility and accepted norms of what women should look like, that to lose your hair as a woman is very, I don't know, what's the feminine, you should know this, what's the female equivalent of emasculating?
I don't think
effeminating.
I don't think there is
that can't
one.
Be right.
That's one of the things, the many ways in which women are not the mirror images of men.
Interesting. Anyway, so it undermines your sense of self. So that's why for years I've used a hairpiece, and I've been very happy with it. But when I went to see Dr. Ophelia, and she said, I will treat you, but you can't have the hairpiece, because I need to get to your scalp, and we're going to do this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. So I had to take it off, which was quite a thing, because I've had it on my head for quite a long time now, and my hair underneath is very, very fine. I mean, fine is sort of an understatement. And I went and had it cut by my very old friend hairdresser George Northwood, who is now a sort of what you would call a celebrity hairdresser, but who very sweetly did it in his office so no one else could see. And so I've decided to come out really as a baldy, as a bald woman. So I'm in I think my daughter says I'm in my Elphaba era. Do you know who Elphaba is?
I'm afraid not.
She's the Green Witch in Wicked.
Oh.
And she's played by Cynthia Evero,
yes,
only she's got a better shaped head than I have. My head's a bit flat at the back, which is disappointing, but there's nothing I can do about it. So I'm going to take my hat off to myself for doing this. Ta-da!
Well, we take our hats off to you.
I don't know. But if anyone wants to send me a Christmas present, a hat would be the thing.
It's great, actually.
So it's it's a thing. I think it's used. I don't know. I feel it's one of the things that I've learnt this year, because I did my autobiography, my sort of memoir, and one of the things that it's taught me is that actually the truth does set you free if you're just honest about who you are. And
gosh, I should try that.
You should, Peter. And I don't know whether that's got any bearing on why I've decided to do it this way and not just carry on trying to hide it. But I sort of think that I think I've just got nothing left to hide. So I think it's about sort of being honest, but it's also I think lots and lots of women, particularly my age, because women get hair loss for lots of different reasons. I mean, I've got it because I've just got androgenic hair loss, but they also get it because of the menopause and all sorts of other things can cause hair loss. And, you know, we're so used to seeing perfect hair everywhere, you know. And I think because wigs have become so much more accessible and also acceptable, you know, people like Nicole Kidman, she wears wigs and all kind of stuff. So, you know, you look at women and you just see the perfection. But actually, at the end of the day, if you are suffering from this, it's quite a sort of it can make you quite sad, and it's difficult because, of course, I'm not ill really. You know, it's not like I've got some terrible disease, so I've got no real. I mean, really, it's a totally harmless condition in the sense that it doesn't, you know, it's not indicative of any underlying condition. But I think it can affect your it can affect your mood quite drastically. You know?
I think people are hugely affected by it, a lot. It's ridiculous to understate it, which is why it's so strong. I think it's the word of you to do what you've done.
I've got my mother's face with my father's hair.
Well, there you are, then, you see. That's another reason to be cheesed off with your father.
Exactly. Yes, thanks, Dad. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. It would be interesting to see how much she can actually regrow. And again, I think that will be it will be interesting to see it actually happening. You know, because for other people who might be thinking of doing this, does it actually work? Is it possible? I mean, I've had no hair really for about the last 15 to 20 years. I've had it this level of thinness. Before I had children and the menopause, it was a bit thicker because it did occasionally stop falling out. But this level of thinness has been basically, you know, that's been the sort of status quo. So it'd be interesting to see what
you've
she
been
can
very frank
actually
about
achieve.
it and writing about it a lot.
Yeah, I think it's.
You haven't hidden it. I mean,
No.
although you've worn the hairpiece,
Yeah.
you've been very clear that that's what you're doing. Well, it must have taken some nerve, I would think.
Yeah, it does take some nerve, but I think it took a lot of nerve to write that book, and I think that's partly why I sort of feel I've got nothing left to lose. It's interesting because I do quite a lot of, or I have been doing quite a lot of TV and stuff, and I'm wondering whether people would still have me on like this. It'd be interesting to find out whether I can just.
Well, they jolly well should.
Well, I have to wear my wig or my hat.
There might have been a time some years
Yeah.
ago when I would have thought now I think there's been a lot more.
I think it would have been very career limiting for a woman, like, you know. I mean, I even just feel just as a print journalist that it would have been career limiting. I remember when I became arts editor of the Times, which was in 1998. I remember having lunch with one of the contributors at the time, Caitlin Moran, who then went on to become sort of stellar columnist for the paper. I remember her arriving for lunch and looking at me and saying, "Oh, gosh, you're not what I expected at all. Everyone told me you were bald." And so it was clearly something that people had been talking about even back then. Yeah. And so I think so it's interesting, isn't it? That you know, that the and I think it did affect my sense of self enormously, because I think particularly with when I was younger with boyfriends, I always felt so grateful that anybody was even vaguely interested in me because, you know, I was bald. And in fact, I remember one young man saying to me, "Oh, I really like you. I think you're the most fantastic, funny person, but I can't possibly go out with you because you don't have enough hair." And I remember thinking, "Gosh, you know, okay, that's going to be an issue going forward."
Well,
so,
it gives you fair warning, doesn't it?
It does, yes. I suppose.
No beating about that.
Exactly. So I think a lot of girls who have this problem feel the same. So I think sometimes it's helpful to see someone who maybe on the surface looks like they've got it all sorted and then realise that actually they're just the same as you. So that's why I've done it, really.
Well, I think you'll hear from an awful lot of people both supporting you and...
Yes, and I will still wear my wig when I feel like it.
And saying that they're glad that you've done it for their sakes.
Yeah. And also I just think from a purely sort of practical point of view, you know, will this treatment work? If it works, great. There's hope for all of us. So when I went to see George Northwood, who did this little cut for me, he cut it and then it was all different colours. It was very badgery, a bit like you. Mm-hmm. So his colourist came in and said,
at least you've got a beard.
It was definitely sort of, and so at least I haven't got a beard. No, that would have been... Well, maybe that's to come. I don't know. But
Be careful with these chemicals.
Maybe got to be careful with these lotion potions. Make sure I don't put them in the wrong place. In fact, when I put it on at night, I do think I must put my moisturiser on first so that I don't then spread the hair. Anyway, but so I walked out of the salon having had this done and having had it lightened so that it's all sort of silvery grey rather than salt and pepper, and it was quite interesting the people's reactions to me. I think they sort of everyone was terribly nice to me because I think you look a little bit sort of fragile, don't you, when you don't have hair?
Yeah.
Even a taxi driver was nice to me. There you go. That's
Good
a lot. I know. So, yeah.
Well, I say that actually quite a lot. I don't use taxis very often.
No, they're perfect. I was just joking. But he was very sweet to me. Anyway, so, and when I got home, my daughter said that she loved it. And then she said, I think you should dye it pink. So maybe I'll dye it pink. I'm not sure.
Wide choice.
I think she's going to treat me as her hair dolly. But yes, it'll be interesting to see what my son says. He might be quite upset. Anyway, the one thing is my face ID doesn't recognise me anymore.
Really?
No. And I have to say the dog did look at me in a rather strange way.
Well, I think you're just imagining that. As long as the food still appears in the bowl.
Yes, I'm sure that'll be fine.
To look at you
yes, I don't know where the other one's gone, but this bald one still gives me food, so I'm sure it's fine. Yeah, I had to redo my Face ID because I can't open my phone anymore. Anyway, that's enough of me.
I thought these things I thought these facial IDs, I have to say, were totally concentrated on the bone structure and everything.
No, apparently they also include hair.
So trivial-minded.
Yes, no, they do absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't recognise me anymore without my hair. If you are interested in wanting to see my bont, it's you can look at Alas Vine and Hitchens on Instagram and the TikTokies. Also, if you want to write in, you can do that also, alas@dailymail.co.uk. And after the break, we're going to talk about some serious stuff.
This is serious?
Well, I mean, Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe is serious.
Yes, but this is serious too.
They expect you to stay quiet, to swallow hidden fees, put up with faulty products, and accept poor service as just the way it is. But you can demand better. Stand up, speak up, because with Which on your side, you can say no to bad business, buy with confidence, and get the service you deserve. Which? The power in you. Find out more at which.co.uk.
You turned your dating app for pets into a business, which just turned over its first billion. You turned around the fortunes of a failing football club, politely turned down a Nobel Peace Prize, and turned up on Mars in your own reusable rocket, while struggling to turn on the dishwasher. There's more to imagine when you listen. Discover business development titles on Audible. Subscription required. See audible.co.uk for terms.
Hey Sainsbury's, any way you can save me a few quid on my weekly shop?
Well, Jane, try Your Nectar prices. Every week in Your Nectar app, you can unlock up to 10 personalised discounts on things you love at Sainsbury's. A Janesbury's, if you will.
Sounds like my kind of place.
Get personalised discounts with Your Nectar prices. That's good food for all of us. Sainsbury's. 18 plus Nectar app required. Unlock up to 10 Your Nectar prices weekly. Available in supermarkets, online and in locals with Smart Shop. T&Cs apply.
Need someone to help you keep on top of what's going on this year? Why not listen to these Acast Politics podcasts? Politics Weekly. Analysis of the week's politics news from the Guardian team.
I think there's a short-term story about political fragmentation and social media in particular and what it does to politics.
The state of it. The Times take you into the real business of politics.
These are big challenges. You can see very clearly that they are walking an incredibly difficult tightrope.
Straight from the dispatch box to your ears. That's Politics Weekly and the State of It, wherever you get your podcasts.
You're still listening to Alas, Vine and Hitchens. I am still Peter Hitchens, and she is still Sarah Vine. And what I want to talk about is the extraordinary case of Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe and the astonishingly good television series about her case. If you don't remember, I'll tell you very briefly. She is an Iranian. She married an Englishman, had a child, took the child back to Iran. She was dual national on an Iranian passport, took her back to Iran to see her parents, and was kidnapped by a disgusting body called the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. I say disgusting body because actually a good friend of mine, Jason Razayan, was also kidnapped by them some years ago and was treated, although he didn't spend anything like so long in their hands, was treated in a way which still makes me angry to think of, given that he was and remains an honest, good-hearted person who deserved nothing of the kind. So I hate them. And it's fascinating to see how well this is portrayed in the programme. And I'm very resistant to television drama a lot of the time. I think most of it I think it's impossible and incredible. This occasion, it's entirely credible. The parts are beautifully played by actors who are not trying to take it over for themselves, but actually inhabit the people they're portraying. And the evil of the Revolutionary Guard is very well portrayed, as is the other thing, which is also, and I find this very pleasing, is that the goodness of most Iranians, which is evident, and their hospitality and their kindness is also portrayed. There's no attempt made to make this an attack on the Iranian people. It's directed at the people in Iran who deserve it. And the other thing is that, to the surprise of many, the British government gets it in the neck as well, and very justly so. They found out very early on that this was a kidnap. Just as, oddly enough, Jason told me that after some weeks of solitary confinement, he realized that he'd been charged with spying. This ridiculous charge had no basis. He realized that he'd been taken as a hostage and basically he was being held for a swap.
Right.
And that's what was going to happen. And at that point, hope dawned. He knew that eventually he would get out because the swap would happen. The same thing ought to have happened really with Nazanin, because what became evident was that the Iranian government was trying to blackmail Britain into paying a debt which Britain owes or owed Iran. This is a shocking thing. We sold them some tanks in 1979 before the old regime fell. They paid us. And we never delivered the tanks. In fact, we sent a lot of them to Iraq, where they were used to attack Iran. So there was deep resentment about this, and it becomes clear very early on in the drama that this is what it's about, that the Iranians want the money, and in return they will let Nazanin go. Now, under those circumstances, you might have thought that the British government would have said, OK, we do owe the money, and we ought to pay it, and there's no obstacle to paying it because it's a real debt. Under the circumstances, it would be crazy not to. It doesn't happen like that at all. What's more, a certain fellow columnist of mine, who was foreign secretary one of many foreign secretaries during this, made some really ill-judged remarks in public about the case, which a lot of people think set back the whole business. It's very well portrayed. There's a wonderful portrayal in Some Grand Row in the Foreign Office of Liz Truss, one of my least favourite politicians, and James Cleverly, then sidekick, being pretty useless, which is enjoyable in a sort of grim way. But I can't recommend it highly enough. It's the best factual drama since The Post Office one. And you will both be... I didn't expect to be anything like as great.
I have actually watched the first episode.
Keep watching. It gets better.
I have a very good friend called Satari who is Iranian, and she's lived here all her life. She was a school friend of mine, actually, and her mother came over after after 1979. And I was talking to her about this the other day in the pub, and she says it's just, she still has relatives back there, but it's just what you said, the point that you made earlier about the Iranian people being incredibly nice, normal, kind people is so true. They are just under this horrible yoke. Can I ask you, why do you think they chose Nazanin? Because presumably this debt has been owed since 1979. So why her? Why them?
The diplomatic position had changed so that Britain, which had previously been by treaty barred from making the payment, was able to make the payment.
Ah, okay.
So the opportunity had opened. They choose people who have dual nationality.
Right.
because they don't recognise British nationality, but they know perfectly well that people with dual nationality can be used as pawns in these kinds of deals. That's what happened. The point about Iran is so powerful. What Jason did for me was he got me in, which is quite difficult. And because the Iranian embassy didn't really want to help me very much, and I got in, sort of semi-officially. And his family live in one of the big shrine cities, Mashhad, in the top right-hand corner near Afghanistan. And I had entry into this tremendous shrine and mosque, which is one of the most moving things I've ever seen. A bit like what Canterbury Cathedral and the Shrine of Thomas à Becket must have been in Britain in the Middle Ages, with the intensity of feeling and the huge numbers of people pouring in. And the hospitality that his family showed to me in their homes. And when I left Mashhad, they held a sort of ceremony that is held for departing guests, in which you pass over water, and there's an awful lot of gestures and rather beautiful. And the whole point of it is the hope that you'll come back. But of course, since Jason was arrested on suspicion of being a spy, and since they've never withdrawn that charge, I am now an associate of known spy, so I can't go back, and I long to go back because it is so beautiful. Well,
I mean, Zaghari's mother was, I think, she was a scientist, actually. So I mean, for women, what's happened in Iran is particularly distressing because all of her aunts and relatives, female relatives, were all highly educated, very sort of elegant, wonderful women, and all of this has been taken away from them.
To some extent, it's extraordinary how the rebellion against it means, for instance,
they're very tough.
The harassment of women for not wearing the hijab in Tehran, particularly, has pretty much stopped. It was fading when I was there, but they've just lost that battle. And I think the thing is that this regime cannot endure much longer. The supreme leader is very, very old, and that there are changes coming. And I really do hope that those changes are not some kind of stupid Western-sponsored intervention, but that they come out of the hearts of the people who would, I think, be able to create if only we'd give them the chance as well, because we often make it harder for sensible people in Iran by the way we behave. If we give them the chance, it could be a fantastic country and an ally of freedom and democracy as well.
And that would change the whole dynamic in that part of the world, and it would make it so much better. Just a point of interest is that Zaghari and my other Iranian friend always refer to themselves as Persian.
I like that term as well. I prefer Persian, but people call me old-fashioned, as they do when I call the capital of China Peking. It is a much nicer word, and it sums up. And also the language is Persian. It's Farsi. It's not.
And also their food is fantastic. There's a big Persian diaspora in LA, isn't there? They famously have the best.
That's where Jason's family, who were not political refugees. His father was a businessman who went to live in California, and he married He married an evangelical Protestant from the Midwest, so it was an interesting marriage.
Combination.
As a result, it produced some very interesting children. But the point also about the program is that the horror of imprisonment and being totally cut off from everything you know and surrounded by filth and people who are trying to break you down, and the contemptuous behavior of various so-called judges in Iran is also brilliantly portrayed. It makes you as angry as you.
Yeah, it makes your blood boil.
The thing, and it ought to boil. That's why keep watching beyond the first. We thought when we sat down to watch it, Mrs. Hitchens and I, it was a sort of duty, and it was never entertainment, but it was real drama of the kind which you quite rarely get. And I recommend it politically and personally and dramatically, very, very highly indeed.
And it's the BBC, isn't it?
Yes.
So there you go. Another reason to keep the BBC. Worth the licence fee alone. And on that bombshell, let's do some questions. Hello, my question is for both of you from Brian. Do you believe in dual nationality, and if someone with multiple nationalities can ever be patriotic? Interesting question. I don't have dual nationality. I mean, not technically, but I do feel both Italian and English. And I wouldn't say I am particularly patriotic, so maybe Brian's correct. What do you think?
Well, the only person I've known at all well who had dual nationality was my late brother, who spent an awful lot of time towards the end of his life obtaining U.S. citizenship, and eventually he used contacts to get through the final hurdle, because it's very difficult to do, and they held a special ceremony for him at the Jefferson Monument in Washington, D.C., which was quite nice. But I think that it was great for him because he didn't really like Britain all that much. He didn't like its political nature, and he was happier as an American. He could be as a Jeffersonian, radical and revolutionary much more readily than he could be in what he regarded as a tired old monarchy off the northwest coast of Europe. I think if it hadn't been for that, it might have been more of a struggle. When I lived there, I wondered whether I would have. You never know when you go abroad to live how long you're going to stay. I thought maybe we'd stay there forever, and in that case, the issue of citizenship would arise. And I could see as I thought about it, conflicts arising, deep conflicts of loyalty. So it suits certain people to have it, but I think ultimately there will come a strain, and you will have to decide which is which.
I'm not sure. I think, there's a fine line between sort of jingoism and patriotism. It's fine to be fond of your country and like it and want to support it, but it doesn't necessarily preclude liking other countries, I always think.
Well, it's the old George Orwell distinction between patriotism and nationalism. Patriotism is love of your country. Nationalism is a kind of unhinged
obsession.
Stamping about the world, saying my country's better than yours. But the one thing I have learned from visiting other people's countries, it's basically to stay out of their business and to consider what lessons our country might learn from theirs, good or bad, rather than to tell other people how to live. So I hope I'm a bad nationalist and a good patriot.
Good. Dear Alas, Vine and Hitchens, I'd like to ask Peter if he is familiar with the music of the composer George Butterworth. Butterworth set many of the poems of Houseman's A Shropshire's Lad to music, and also wrote a magnificent orchestral rhapsody with the same title. This set includes what is, in my view, the saddest song ever written, The Lads in Their Hundreds. He was killed by a sniper at the Battle of the Somme, aged just 31, tragically mirroring the characters in many of Houseman's poems he set so beautifully to music. Thank you both for the entertaining and informative podcast. All best wishes, Mark, from the Isle of Wight.
Well, I'm not.
Well, let's be good.
I'm sorry to say.
Sounds like you should be. Yes. I'm not familiar either. I must look that up. You don't do Spotify, do you?
I don't do Spotify.
No, because I got my Spotify Wrapped last night. Do you know what that is?
No, it sounds slightly painful.
Sounds a little painful. But apparently every year, Spotify, which is a music streaming service, Peter.
Where they have popular musical content.
And they also have other types. You can have all the classicals.
When I've looked into all this internet music stuff, it does tend to be very heavily biased.
No. You can get any concerto you like on Spotify. It's actually very good for classical music, yes.
Can you?
Because you can get all the different choices. If you have a particular performance or conductor that you like, you can get it on Spotify. I would actually really recommend it if you like classical music. I got it for my dad, and he actually does use it. But they do every year.
Every time I've looked at internet music services, they do seem to be very heavily towards the other thing, and if you ask them for a bit of Corelli or something, they get a bit
shirty.
Cold.
Well, anyway, it does this thing called Spotify Wrapped, which is basically where it tells you what you've been listening to and gives you your statistics. And apparently my listening age is 76.
That's nearly as old as me.
But I thought it was quite rude of it, actually, to be perfectly honest.
What would be wrong with that? Listening age 76 sounds quite
well, I like to think of myself as a hip young thing.
How have you won this?
Well, I don't really know, because I listen to lots. I have quite an eclectic musical taste. I listen to lots of different
76 would sort of suggest Frank Sinatra.
No, I don't listen to any of that sort of stuff.
Well,
I listen to a sort of bizarre mixture of classic. No, I don't. No, I don't listen to all that sort of stuff. No, I listen to kind of indie pop because I'm from that era, and then I listen to.
You obviously listen to it in a mature way.
Maybe it's seen me dancing. Maybe that's why it thinks I'm 76.
Well, you think it once you've gone,
or it's seen my hair.
It plants cameras around.
Exactly.
Gaff.
Anyway, thank you, Mark. I will give that a go, and I will show Peter how to use Spotify. And then next year you can have a Spotify Wrap, and we can know all about it.
Looking forward to it keenly.
Hi, Sarah and Peter. Do you think the woke doctrine and identity politics of the left has damaged progress for the working class?
Yes.
Oh, good. Excellent. Next question.
Well, no, it's important. There was a body in this country. It's called the Labour Party. It was a trade union party. It was a working class party. It was a council house party. It was a Methodist party. It was actually very much a temperance party as well, which used to be fantastically important and ought to be again, in my view.
Yeah.
And all that has been completely deserted. The Labour Party in the 60s emptied out. And into this empty corpse, really, flooded all kinds of people who had other fish to fry, generally Trotskyist fish to fry. And funnily enough, all kinds of London Labour parties, which had no members, suddenly obtained them, people down from university. And it became a completely different thing. And they find the votes of the old Labour supporters useful, but they don't want to hear from them at all about what they actually want.
No, quite. I'll just read you what Ed says, the author of the letter. He says, the left seems to have abandoned its mission to raise working class people up to only raise certain identity groups up. This irks me. At university, I had a few friends who went to the big public schools who would be classed in these groups, and they had access to massive grants and schemes, whereas I, as a working class lad from Middlesbrough, got nothing.
Well, I can well believe it, but what is absolutely certain is that the old intention of raising the status and the living standards and the education of the poor has been completely abandoned by Labour. And the key event of this, for me, has always been the abolition of state grammar schools, where it was possible for anybody who had talent to get a decent education and make his or her way.
And the assumption,
now it's not.
But the assumption was that you would want to make your own way, and then that was a good thing. And I think the problem with the sort of current Labour dogma is that they just want everyone to stay in their place. It's funny.
Well, they just don't care about that issue anymore. What reformers tend to do is to seek allies, cynically, who will vote for them. And they found that the working class were useful for that for many years. But round about the end of the 60s and 70s, that ceased to matter so much to them, so they looked elsewhere.
Yeah.
And you can see very easily where they're looking now.
One more brilliant question. I had the delight to rewatch Top Gun last Friday. Do you know what Top Gun is?
I have seen both the original and the sequel.
I had the delight to
hugely enjoyed them both.
Well, I had the delight to rewatch Top Gun last Friday night and couldn't help but notice that Tom Cruise's Maverick bears a very slight passing resemblance to a younger Peter Hitchens.
It must be very slight.
The fact that Maverick's real name in the film is Peter Mitchell also made me chuckle. I'm wondering if Peter enjoys the film, as it even reflects Cold War tensions of the era.
I seem to remember enjoying the first one largely because Kelly McGillis was who is superb, who was, her greatest film was Witness with Harrison Ford, and absolutely wonderful. I watched the sequel, and I thought it was terrific, particularly when Tom Cruise arrives, having fallen out of his plane in some tiny town in the far west of America, and walks into a bar and says, "Where am I?" And a child pipes up, "Earth."
No, it was
he's so covered in tubes and helmets and.
Oh no,
it's good.
They are good movies.
The plot is complete rubbish.
No, but no one does it like Tom Cruise. He's brilliant at that sort of stuff. Well, there you go. I shall forever now think of you as Tom Cruise, Peter Hitchens. Oh, that's all we've got time for. If you would like to be involved, then please email us your questions or books or viewing suggestions at alas@dailymail.co.uk. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next week. Oh, and if you want to see the hat coming off, then you can look at it on the TikToks or on Instagram at Alas, Vine and Hitchens.
You turned your dating app for pets into a business, which just turned over its first billion. You turned around the fortunes of a failing football club, politely turned down a Nobel Peace Prize, and turned up on Mars in your own reusable rocket, while struggling to turn on the dishwasher. There's more to imagine when you listen. Discover business development titles on Audible. Subscription required. See audible.co.uk for terms.
They expect you to stay quiet, to swallow hidden fees, put up with faulty products, and accept poor service as just the way it is. but you can demand better. Stand up, speak up, because with Which on your side, you can say no to bad business, buy with confidence, and get the service you deserve. Which? The power in you. Find out more at which.co.uk.
Need someone to help you keep on top of what's going on this year? Why not listen to these Acast Politics podcasts? Politics Weekly, analysis of the week's politics news from the Guardian team.
I think there's a short-term story about political fragmentation and social media in particular and what it does to politics.
The state of it. The Times take you into the real business of politics.
These are big challenges. You can see very clearly that they are walking an incredibly difficult tightrope.
Straight from the dispatch box to your ears. That's Politics Weekly and the State of It, wherever you get your podcasts.